The First World War, also called the Great War, put an end to four empires: the German Empire, the Austro-Hungarian Empire, the Russian Empire, and finally the Ottoman Empire. It was the most devastating war in history at the time. As a result, the borders of Europe were redrawn, for better or for worse. For example, the peace treaty that was put on Germany was very harsh. In 1919, the French General Ferdinand Foch said that this is no peace treaty, this is an armistice for 20 years. He was exactly right, as 20 years later, in 1939, the Second World War started. But what would happen if nobody won the Great War? How would that change world history, and would World War II even happen? There are many possibilities how the First World War could have ended in a stalemate. I will be using a video I made for the Alternate History Guild YouTube channel. The channel is sponsored by Possible History and allows everyone to upload quality videos on there. This video is part 2 on what would happen if the Moroccan crisis had sparked World War I. You can find the link to the video in the pinned comment down below. You don't have to watch the previous video to understand this one. It is just one scenario on how the war could have ended in a stalemate, and as a result, no nation is going to come out victorious. Any scenario could be used to reach that point in today's video. To start off with Russia, unless they absolutely win the war, it's 100% certain that they will have a communist uprising. This is the case in this scenario, since they hadn't won any decisive battle, and the Great War ended without a clear winner. The Russians would still sign the humiliating peace treaty of Brest-Litovsk just because they had the communists to deal with. I think that the White Russians would fall, because there is no way that they can win the civil war, or at least not in this scenario. The Germans might appear as they didn't lose any land. In fact, they gained some in the Brest-Litovsk peace treaty. This, however, quickly would change. First of all, the Entente occupied all of the German colonies during the war, so I think it's very possible that they choose not to return them to Germany and keep it to themselves. Secondly, most of Alsace-Lorraine, if not all, would be given to France. For the purpose of this video, I will give most of Alsace-Lorraine to France, with Germany keeping Strasbourg. Finally, let me discuss the elephant in the room, the new territories gained from the Treaty of Brest-Litovsk. These territories didn't want to be part of Germany, nor to be German vassal states. Germany could have easily taken them militarily and after that imposed their ideas on them, but the German public was very anti-war. You can think of this how historically after the Ottoman Empire was defeated, the territories were split up between the participating nations of Great Britain, France, Italy and Greece. However, after the war was over, the Turks learned about how they were going to be carved up and decided to start the War of the Turkish Independence. This means that if the Entente wanted to gain their promised land in the peace treaty, they would have to fight for it. Every Entente nation except Greece backed down, since they were at war for 4 years and the public didn't want to go to war again. The same would happen in Germany, as they wouldn't be able to secure their new holdings. They will focus on taking some Baltic coastline, but the rest would be let free. Most likely, all of these territories that were let go by the Germans would fight the Soviet Union and eventually lose. The German Kaiser Wilhelm II will abdicate and stop being the ruler of the German people. This would be forced on him since the war he had started had no clear winner, but came out a price tag with a few million dead Germans. He would be succeeded by his son, Wilhelm III. The ruling of the new Kaiser would be very difficult initially. German veteran soldiers would protest in Frankfurt. This protest quickly spread to all of the major cities in Germany. There would be a communist coup attempted, but it would be unsuccessful. The reason for that is that the communists would only control the cities, where the workers are, and not the farms, where the food is coming from. I believe after a few months of stalemate, the Imperial German army would easily take back the cities that were uprising. Austria-Hungary would still collapse, but it would happen in a very different way than it was in our timeline. Since there was no clear winner or loser in the war, nobody would impose their terms on the losing nations. This means that the United States President Woodrow Wilson and his 14 points and right for self-determination would be mostly ignored. As a result, Austria would keep Slovenia because they need a coastline, and they would keep Czechia because a lot of Austrians live there and the land was too valuable to lose. Most of the industry was based in Czechia, as well as most of the farmland. The Czechs would enjoy some autonomy and economic aid from the Austrians to keep them intact. Hungary would keep most of Transylvania and would control the entire nation of Slovakia. The Romanians would dispute Transylvania, but they couldn't do anything about it. They can only declare war, which is unlikely to succeed. Finally, the Slavic part of Austria-Hungary would be granted autonomy, and eventually they might join Serbia and form Yugoslavia. The inconclusive end to the World War I led to mixed reaction across the world. Some were celebrating that the devastating conflict had ended, while others were frustrated that there was no clear victor. One of these nations is France. They would be on the verge of a communist civil war. This is because they lost 1.5 million soldiers in the war and gained only a part of Alsace-Lorraine and some German colonies. This doesn't justify the death toll and the price tag that was put on them. A civil war is possible, but I won't cover it in today's video since there is no way to be for certain. The United Kingdom won't change much, as they didn't gain any European land after the First World War in our timeline. They just took some German colonies and received payment in the form of war reparations from the Germans. I don't think there is going to be much unrest in the country, making it the most powerful and stable nation on earth at the time. Let me know in the comments which country you are from and if you would like to live on such a world. Also, I would really appreciate if you leave a like and subscribe. Now, back to the video. There are two major powers that I haven't discussed, and these are Italy and the Ottoman Empire. Let's start with Italy, where in our timeline, despite being part of the victorious great powers, they didn't gain what they were promised. Now that they hadn't even been victorious, this would send shockwaves around the country. Fascism is for sure going to rise in Italy, just as it did in our timeline. The Italians might even start attacking their neighboring countries, depends on if the League of Nations gets formed and how the situation would be handled. Finally, the Ottoman Empire would crumble, but they would keep most of their lands. I believe that they will keep Syria and Iraq. The other nations would be released due to high internal pressure and the risk of a civil war between the Arabs and the Turks. With that, Saudi Arabia maybe gets even bigger, taking some land away from the countries like Jordan for example. While the Ottoman Empire would be greatly weakened, they would still be called the Ottoman Empire, which means they get to live for another day. The Balkans are the last place I will cover in this video. I think that Bulgaria is going to be much stronger in this position due to not signing the Neuss-sur-Seine peace treaty. They would have a coastline to the Aegean Sea and control some parts of Macedonia. This would change the balance of power in the Balkans, as well as the Ottoman Empire will be still around. In the end, I think that the post-war borders could look something like this. Some nations like Germany, Austria-Hungary and the United Kingdom would be very stable and peaceful. In these countries, people are way more wary of nationalism and nationalist fervor. They are focused on diplomacy and international cooperation. Artists and writers would produce works reflecting the war's futility and the need for a better world, which influence the course of literature, art and philosophy. On the opposite side are countries like France, Italy and the Soviet Union, who would turn nationalist and would try to extend their military might on other peaceful nations. They would feel like they deserved more and would try to get it by force. Even if a full-blown war erupts between these nations, I think that it will remain a European war, being far away from a world war. This scenario would for sure change the outcome of the Second World War, maybe completely preventing it. Germany is unlikely to go fascist and would much rather to keep what they already have. While the armistice ends the fighting in Europe, it doesn't address the underlying tensions and issues that led to the war in the first place. Nationalism, colonial disputes and unresolved territorial claims remain, setting the stage for potential conflict in the future. The geopolitical landscape remains tense, with the balance of power remaining uncertain. I suggest that you watch this video up next, where I redraw the borders of Europe. Thank you for watching and have a nice day.